What is up, everybody? This is Eric with Mindful Motion LA, and I hope you guys had a great week. In today's video, I just wanted to talk about a underappreciated and often not talked about component of exercise that really has a major and profound effect on your exercise experience, your perception of pain, the intensity of exercise, and ultimately will have a big role in your ability to progress and succeed with your training. And that's this idea of your mind's perspective, your beliefs, your mental state, and emotional state going into an exercise or a workout or your overall training and how you view it and feel about it. So we've all heard this adage of what you think about, you bring about. I'm sure you guys heard that. And there's a lot of truth and validity to that statement. And when I say that, I'm not talking about if you think about having a $20 million house, eventually it's just going to show up. I'm talking about more in line with exercise. If you go into an exercise with a preconceived notion of how hard it's going to be, how it's going to feel, maybe you've had pain during an exercise doing that specific thing. Maybe you do a chest press and the last time you did it, there was pain in your shoulder. So you're going into that chest press exercise with the thought that it's going to hurt. And that belief and thought will ultimately shape the way that exercise will feel. So, to help paint a picture and make a case for why you should care and think about what your mind is doing when you're exercising, I'm going to go through a few examples. The first example was something that happened recently with a client. I was taking a client through a leg press exercise where you're basically seated and pushing a plate away from you with your legs. And the first set, I put 250 on there, 250 pounds. I know that that's not that hard for them, right? And I had them do it. And they reported after the set that it felt like a 7, 8 out of 10 effort for them. So that's fairly challenging. But I know this client can do 400 pounds. So to me, I'm like, well, that probably wasn't that hard. So I sneakily added 50 pounds without them noticing. And then I had them do it again. And what's really amazing is that they reported that that 50-pound heavier weight was easier than the first set. Now, another day, I do this same thing, same weights, and I increase the 50 pounds from 250 to 300, but I tell them this time. And then they report to me that it was significantly harder than the first set. So what's going on here? It's the same exact weights. Obviously, there are other factors, a different day and whatnot, but everything was the same except for the day and me telling them or not telling them that I increased the weight. So the very fact that I told them it was heavier, in their minds, they thought it was heavier and they thought it would be harder, so they perceived it as harder. Ultimately, their belief of whether it was going to be harder changed the intensity of the exercise. That's really crazy, but very, very powerful and true. If you know how to manipulate that kind of stuff, you can do some of these things to yourself and maybe make exercises that used to be really challenging a little bit easier. And that's a really important thing to know because maybe you're trying to get better and progress and you need to go into those hard bouts of training. Your mental perspective will allow you to get there or not. So having that in your head and knowing how you might manipulate things can help you maybe go a little more into those more tough, challenging places with an exercise. So let's use another example to help make a case for why the mind is so powerful and important when you train. Let's use a science-based example from research. Now, I'm not going to be able to recall specific studies in exact, precise way, but I have a general remembrance of it, so I'll do my best, and don't kill me if I get it wrong. So they've done many placebo-based trials within research, and I'm sure you guys have heard of the placebo phenomenon. Basically, if you give someone a medication, and they think it's a medication, but in fact, it's really nothing. It's like a sugar pill. It will have similar effects on their physiology. So let's take this example. If you have, they do research double-blind control studies. Usually there's a group that does nothing. They don't participate to control for the groups that are participating. So then one group isn't taking a medication. Another group is taking a blood sugar regulatory medication to help lower their blood sugar. And then another group is given a pill. They're told that it's a blood sugar medication, but in fact, it's nothing. It's sugar or salt or something like that. Probably not sugar because that would mess with the study. Let's say it's salt. something that wouldn't impact their blood sugar levels. The group that was given the blood sugar medication, obviously they had an effect and their blood sugar was taken down. But the group that was told that they were given blood sugar medication, but in fact were not, they had similar effects. Upwards of 50% or more of those people had same physiological effects as taking the medication, but they didn't take it. What does that tell you? It tells you that their belief that they were told this will lower their blood sugar, because they believed it, their nervous system and their body created the physiological changes required to lower their blood sugar. And we can see this in countless examples throughout time and history of how this stuff works. Your belief, your mind's power to change your physiology is profound and really, really incredible. I'll give you one more example just to show you how crazy this is. They did another research study with two groups of people. They were using a shake of some kind. One group was told that the shake was a diet shake, so it was low calories, 200 calories or something like that. And then another group was told that it was a fattening shake, and it was upwards of 700 calories. In fact, the shakes were the same, and they were both probably, I think, in the 200 calorie range. And what they were doing in this study is they were measuring the release of a hormone called ghrelin. Ghrelin is a hormone that basically tells your body that it's satisfied, satiated, that it tells you when you're full. So the group that was told that the shake was a diet shake and low calorie, they drank it, reported not being satisfied or satiated, and the ghrelin hormone release in their system wasn't that high. The second group was told that it was 700 calories. They reported being incredibly satiated. And when they measured their ghrelin hormone levels, it was incredibly higher. And I don't remember exact numbers here, but it's substantial, probably on the order of twice as much. But the shakes were the same calorie level. So once again, the people's beliefs and their perspective going into that study and drinking those shakes changed their physiological response. So let's backtrack to exercise again. If you are someone who maybe isn't experienced or are struggling with certain exercises because of pain, or maybe you just don't like exercise and you have a negative relationship with it. Most people have these things going on. Most people don't enjoy the feeling of a burning muscle, don't enjoy the challenge of exercise when it gets hard, and that's okay. What I want to put forward for you guys is a thing you can try. This idea of mind flow, one of my teachers and colleagues, Jock Taylor, coined this term mind flow. And all it is basically when you're doing something, say when you're doing an exercise, observe where your mind goes. Where's your attention when you're training? Don't judge it. Just see where is my mind going when I'm doing this? When it gets hard, where do I go? What do I resort to? What emotional state do I end up in? So maybe you're getting into a set, it's getting really tough. Do you start to get anxious? Do you start to get afraid? Do you get upset? Are you really excited? Are you thinking about an argument with your wife? Are you thinking about dinner? Like, where does your mind go? Observe that and just make a note of it, okay? And then decide, do you like that your mind is going to that place? Do you think that's serving you well for your exercise experience? If you don't think it is, then pick something before you do the exercise to think about. Draw your attention to a specific target, and then do the exercise and keep your mind on that target. It might be the pace that you're moving at, counting 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, and you're focused on that and only that. When your mind wanders, you bring it back, and it's going to wander. You just got to come back to what you want to pay attention to. And in some cases, this is very meditative. If you've ever meditated, it's the same exact approach. You pick something to think about or focus on, and if your mind wanders, you bring it back. In the same way, you can do this with an exercise. And what this will do is it will help you stay intentful and attentive to what you're doing. And that will allow you to progress and maybe get more from the exercise. Another thing I want to provide you guys is this idea of checking in with your emotional state and your mental state before you come in to train. If you're coming in and you've been really stressed and your mind's really burdened by your day-to-day life and you just don't feel up to training, that's okay. can you, before you start working out, can you find a way to maybe break that that stress level in your head and put your attention towards something positive? If you go into training and exercise with a positive perspective and not any preconceived notions of how hard it's going to be, how it's going to feel, if something's going to hurt, but you come in and you simply are present and observing what is actually happening and not bringing in past experiences to tie to this current experience, you might have a richer experience and a better opportunity to get more from what you're doing and continue to progress. In a sense, you're not only progressing your physical body when you train, you're progressing your mental mindscape also. So if you're okay with building up a negative perspective continuously every time you exercise, then that's fine. But if you want to change that, and if you want to have a more positive relationship with training so that you actually look forward to doing it, and it's something that you enjoy and you find excitement in, then having a moment before or during and checking in and finding a way to make it positive is really helpful. Now, I can't give you exact ways that you can do this because everybody's different and what they need to think about and how they need to do it to draw in a positive experience will vary. But it's through the efforts of trying and playing around with this stuff, putting your focus on specific tasks, trying to get your perspective in the present and not burdened by past experiences will make a big difference. And when it comes to pain, this is a very important piece because especially if you've had an injury and there was pain doing specific movements and then that injury heals, oftentimes that pain sticks around. Even though there's no material damage anymore, everything's healed and there's actually nothing physically wrong, there are pathways that your brain has created to and has solidified that creates a pain response. And to break that, it will often take some creative implementation of tactics of how you think and approach the exercise to make it more novel and different so your brain doesn't go through that pain response. So what I'm saying in an example of this would be, say, that chest press thing again. If every time after you got hurt, you do a chest press and there's pain in your shoulder because of an injury, you're less likely to want to do that, right? Months go by, 6 months go by, let's say, and the injury is healed, you have no issues, but you still have the pain doing the chest press. It's almost just a triggering thing now. So what you might do in that circumstance is check in before you do the chest press. Are you thinking in your head, this is going to hurt? If you are, pick a different exercise that doesn't look exactly the same. Use a different tool, something that feels a little different, but still challenges your chest, and see if you can do a chest stimulating exercise without triggering that thought that it's going to hurt. So instead of a chest press, maybe you're doing a chest fly because that one wasn't triggering and you didn't create that pathway of a pain response. And then you can go through it comfortably and over time start strengthening that and getting a little more acquainted with training your chest, and then go back to chest press with a new perspective, and maybe it doesn't hurt anymore. So there's lots of ways and you can get creative with changing your mental perspective and how your mind works within training. But just remember, when you train your body, you're training your mind, and it's a really profound piece of the puzzle that can change and transform your exercise experience. And I'm actually going to be doing an interview with one of my teachers next Saturday, discussing this in more detail. He is the nervous system mind guy. His whole career has been centered around it. So he's going to have some really amazing information for you guys. Hope you all can tune in. I believe it's at 1 p.m. But I'll be posting some info and details on when it's happening. And I hope you guys join live. All right. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Talk to you soon. Take care.